So I browned my bacon. I took that out. It's just draining on a paper towel. I'm going to take my potatoes and I'm going to put that in that hot oil. We're going to brown both sides. And then finish that in the oven. Now these potatoes, I just peeled. I cut them into like 3/4 inch slices. You don't have to do the potato, you can. And I'm going to flip them and put them in the oven, okay, while they're browning. Now, my strip steak, I have my wine here, and what I have here is 6 ounces of red wine, 6 ounces of beef or chicken stock, some crushed garlic, some shallot in there, little like a half a sliced shallot, a sprig of thyme, about a 2-inch sprig of rosemary, 1 teaspoon of pickling spice if you want that, 1 bay leaf, 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar, balsamic vinegar, white wine vinegar, some kind of acid in there, and then so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to poach it on this side. It doesn't have to be submerged. I'm going to poach it on this side. It's about halfway covered. And then I'm going to flip it in about flip it in about 6 minutes, 5-6 minutes. Okay, it's going to take around 12 to 15 minutes total cooking time. Okay, so we're going to brown these potatoes, get some really good color. Okay, the potatoes, I want some really good color. We're going to add a little seasoning on this side, and then we're going to put them in the oven. And I didn't brown the second side. I'm going to let that brown in the oven, and then I might flip those in about 5 minutes so they cook evenly. 400-degree oven. Now, my liquid for my strip steak, I want to keep that at about 160 degrees, okay? I just want to poach that really slow. You can poach it at 130 degrees. You could actually put that kind of poaching liquid. You don't have to make that much. You can make a quarter of it if you have a food saver and a circulator at home. You can cook it in a circulator to an internal temperature, 130 degrees. So I would cook it at 130 for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Now, if you want, you can poach this rare, and then you can sear it off very quickly afterwards if you wanted to give it some caramelization. I'm just going to go a straight poach on this, okay? Okay, so after about 6-7 minutes, I flipped it. I checked it. You know, you can check for doneness. I wanted it kind of about rare, medium rare. And then I let it cook on the second side for about another 6-7 minutes. And I'm kind of looking for a nice medium rare doneness right now. So looking at that, okay, it's a little soft, but it bounces back ever so gently. And now I want to take, some of that pickling spice off of that. I didn't put it in a sachet, and then I'm just going to let that rest. Again, I have a little piece of foil here so it doesn't sit on the bottom. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this up, and I have 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. You can use honey if you want. You can use brown sugar, and I'm going to reduce this down to a light syrup, and that's going to be kind of my syrup, my glaze for the plate for my strip. And I'll slice that a little bit now, and then again, that has beautiful color on there. Okay. I have an egg here. Looks like it might have broke. Okay, so I have my my reduction going. It's almost ready. Now, before I cooked this strip steak, I took all these ingredients, the wine and spices, and I simmered that for about 7 or 8 minutes, and then brought it down to 160 degrees. So I have my water here. It's almost a quart of water, maybe a little less. 2 tablespoons of white vinegar or some other vinegar that you have. And then a big sprig of rosemary. And then I'm just going to go ahead and drop that in very carefully. We're going to poach that. And that's going to cook for about 4 or 5 minutes. 4 minutes. Okay? Okay, so I strained this poaching liquid, and now I'm going to mount in my butter, about a tablespoon of butter. That's going to help to round it out a little bit, especially depending on the wine. If it's still a little tannic or it's a little bitey, you can always add a tiny bit more butter if you'd like. You can always add a little more maple, but I think it has enough for me. I don't want it too sweet, so I want a Monte Albert with the butter. And then my poached egg is done. Again, I want it nice and soft. And my potatoes are tender. So I am ready to plate. I have a plate here. My potatoes are just gonna dry off just a little. Okay. Potatoes. I have my strip steak, which I'm going to slice. Oh, beautiful. See that? Nice rare, medium rare. And we're going to put some 3 pieces of strip steak on there. And here's my poached egg. That looks good. Okay. So you can see that poached egg, it's nice and soft. Just going to let it dry off a little bit. I'm going to flip it because that side's going to look a little nicer. Get that rosemary out of there. See that? Beautiful. We're going to top it with our poached egg. A little bit more salt, a little on the steak, some pepper, a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on that poached egg, a little bit of our syrup, and then my crispy bacon right on top. A couple pieces fall, don't worry about it. I have a few celery leaves. You know, I like celery, something fresh. Pickled onions would be good on this. Some parsley. And then I also have my my buttered croutons. Okay, so I have some really small diced croutons that I just tossed in butter, and I bake those off. A little bit of crispy breadcrumbs for a garnish. Okay, so that's my toast then. All right, that's it. Red wine poached steak and eggs, rosemary poached egg, some crispy bacon, a little bit of bacon fat fried potato, and a maple red wine reduction. Have a great night, everybody. How you doing, everybody? So tonight I'm going to do a red wine poached strip steak. I was going to do a red wine poached egg, so that's another option. I would do like half wine, half water, 6 ounces of wine, 6 ounces of water. You know, make sure you have enough water to keep the egg, you know, submerged, obviously. So what I'm going to do is start a couple things, but I'll give you the recipe and I'll post it also online. So I'm going to do a red wine poached strip steak, poached egg with rosemary, a little bit of white vinegar in the water. I'm going to do some bacon fried potato. So it's a kind of a play on breakfast. And I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil to my pan. And I'm going to brown my bacon. I'm going to take that bacon out because I'm going to use it as a garnish later. And I just cut those into like 1/4 inch strips, kind of like a lardon, but it's not a true lardon. My strip steak, I'm going to trim some of this fat off again. You know, you can save some of that fat. We used some of that yesterday when I sauteed the strip steak. If you have no use for it, you can discard it. And then that kind of thick gristle, part of gristle right at the front again, I want to take off. Now, we don't need too much fat on this because we're poaching it. Okay, so we're not going to be rendering a lot of fat. Okay, so I would try to take out most of that fat. And we are going to season this still. Good seasoning. Just stir the bacon a little bit.